What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And once again, in this video, we're going to be sharing some insights from Memories of the Afterlife, a book that I actually just finished, by the way, last night. So we're going to be on to the next one tonight, which I'm very excited about. But this is the last little insight, might be the last video. I might have one more that I'll make as well for some remaining insights and excerpts that I extracted from this book. But just to give you a quick summary, if you're new to the channel, if you're new to these videos, this book, Memories of the Afterlife, is about life between lives. It is information that is extracted while patients are under hypnosis and going through therapies. And through that hypnosis vehicle, they're able to access memories of previous lives and as well as memories from the ethereal, basically the existence. That's what they call it, the lives between lives, the existence that we lead in the ethereal plane when we're not incarnated in a particular body within the physical plane. So that's what this is about. It's just mind-blowing to me. And again, I am presenting this information as I learn about it, as I'm reading these books and getting a hold of this type of information. I'm sharing it not from the standpoint of me saying this is absolutely true and I understand everything there is to know. It's not that. It's a meant to be an objective exploration of what life is all about and what is really going on and why do we show up here, what's the purpose of our individual lives, just trying to honestly and openly come to some sort of an understanding and conclusion about everything, about what this is all about. So I found that NDEs and these hypnosis regression sessions are highly valuable. At least they resonate with me when I hear these stories and I hear what they're saying. It makes a lot of sense. So that's it. That's a little preface. And now let's get into the mix. So we're going to share two little excerpts. Actually, it's one big section from the same chapter from the same regression session, but there's two really important themes here. Now, the first part is about forgiveness, and it also dovetails with the overall analogy that I've used on this channel before to describe what life is all about. And I've described it as a game. And we're going to talk about that in a second excerpt from this same page. And that's essentially the purpose of life is to, the analogy that I've given before is life is like a game of chess. Like when we enter into a game of chess, what are we doing? We're intentionally limiting our abilities to fit a particular rule set. We play the game, we have fun, maybe we try and win, maybe we lose, whatever happens. But the point of the game, really, if we zoom out into our greater lives, yes, it's fun in the moment, but it also teaches us lessons. It helps us understand strategy. It improves the sharpness of our mind. So it's really not about winning or losing, but it's about the value that we extract and then we can apply to the rest of our lives. And it could just be momentary pleasure. That could also be a value that we're extracting. But that's kind of what it is. So we learn by restricting our abilities to a predetermined set of rules. We play within those rules, and through those experiences we learn and we grow as people outside of the game. And I think that that's a great analogy for perhaps what this life is. Our soul, our energy, when in the ethereal, has way more capacity and capability than we have here, but there's an intentional limitation set on our abilities here. We're bounded by these bodies, we're bounded by the laws of physics, we're bounded by our physical brains and what their capacities are, for the purpose of having a struggle and go through the learning process and experience different things within this limited rule set, and have us to work through our issues within this limited rule set. And through that process, we learn and we grow. So anyways, that's the long and short of it in terms of that analogy of life being a game. But we're going to come back to that in a second when we read that excerpt. Okay, so what is true forgiveness? And I thought this was so cool. So again, going back to the idea, we come and we incarnate. Everybody has a different reason or purpose in terms of their one particular life from to the next. And by the way, this also, part of what they talk about in Memories of the Afterlife is that there isn't, and this is what all these basically people recount, obviously, if you're saying past lives, right? The idea is that we live multiple lives. It's not just one life to solve everything and to sort everything out, but multiple lives, and each life is focused on a particular issue. Just like we might take different classes in a college, each class is focused on something specific. So just to give a little context there. But this person is saying in this particular life, her goal was to learn forgiveness. So we're going to read it now. What message is being given to you that can be useful in your current life as Monique? Today I've learned compassion, but I need to learn forgiveness. So the compassion is more from a past life, but forgiveness is the present life lesson. So again, she's in the ethereal, she's talking, and she's gaining access to her overall overarching goals in this life. She says, yes. And then the therapist says, what is true forgiveness? And I thought this was really, really cool. A really interesting way to talk about forgiveness. I mean, we all need to work on forgiveness, right? Like I feel like this is something that is probably a big part of all of our life lessons in general, maybe just to varying degrees. But it says, what is true forgiveness? I love this. It is understanding that each creation has their own method of learning and producing, and that they're entitled to mistakes, as I am. The growth process isn't perfect, and you must understand that. So you don't always remember people. There's a lot in this. Remember people for the hurt you imagined from them in the past. So it's very interesting. It's not the hurt that they did to you, but it's the hurt that you imagined. Because that really resonates with me, because a lot of times the hurt that we feel from somebody's actions is the spin that we put on it, is the meaning that we attach to those particular actions or those particular words or those, whatever it may be. So I love the way, and it does, to me, that doesn't diminish or demean any hurt that somebody causes you, but I think it just says it in a very frank way. The other thing I want to say too is, the interesting thing about this book and all these stories shared here in Journey of Souls as well is that obviously this is being relayed by a person with a particular vocabulary, with particular experiences. So everything is colored by their individual experiences. So you have to take these accounts and how people are saying them with a grain of salt and try and understand through the lens of who they are as a person, which you can glean better if you actually read the book. But try and understand that, there's a great example on the channel as well where I show excerpts of a physicist trying to describe the ethereal, trying to describe, I guess you could say, the entity that we kind of maybe refer to as God or the universe or like beyond the universe or whatever. And he describes it in very physics-based terminology of like general consciousness and stuff like that. So again, it's not to say that anyone's particular explanation from what they're receiving from the ethereal or elsewhere is right or wrong, but probably people just have different ways of explaining what they're experiencing or seeing, because it's going to be colored by their experiences in this life. So anyways, coming back to this, so cool. So it's this idea of recognizing that everybody, right? People are here not just to do, they're here to learn. And we all have our own unique methods of learning. And sometimes they work in sync with us. Sometimes they clash with the way that we're trying to do things. And then to remember that it's not going to be perfect, and to let go. Oh man, I'm like reading this right now, and I'm like telling myself I need to follow this advice like in real time. It's so good. But that we need to let go of maybe blaming people or holding on to certain things, saying like they're a bad person or they really did this to hurt me and that was terrible. It's like, well, wait a minute, they're going through their own process of learning and growth. I think somebody today who's not referencing these past life experiences would say the same thing, though, that like, hey, you have to remember that people all have their own trauma and they're working out their own things. So sometimes things that may hurt you, it's not done with that intent. It's just them working out stuff on their own in real time. Anyways, so I thought that was such a powerful message in terms of true forgiveness, recognizing we're all in our own process of growth. The process is not perfect, and try not to remember people from the hurt you imagined, right? The hurt that you're connecting, that maybe to some extent you're creating, I guess you could say. All right, let's move on to the second little piece here. And then this again goes back to this notion that life can be looked at as a game, not to diminish it, not to demean it, but a game in the sense like chess. Like, not that it's meaningless, but we go into it and we try to win, we win or lose, but then we come away with value from just the process of playing the game. And so the actual outcome is irrelevant, right? It's what we learn and what we extract. So I think in the same way, that's how we're looking at life. It doesn't matter if you reached a particular goal of like financial success or business success, or you get the relationship that you always wanted, or you don't get the relationship that you always wanted. It's probably not about the individual check marks and successes, but it's the lessons that we extract from playing the game and trying regardless. And I love that. So anyway, it says, again, here it says the hurt you, and then this is following up with that, like the hurt you imagine. So the therapist is like, wait, the hurt you imagine from them. So this is something you create for yourself, this hurt. Sometimes souls are not always on track with their purpose, but you have a choice. And the therapist says you have a choice to protect yourself from getting hurt. Well, you can protect yourself, maybe stay away, stay out of danger, but then you don't benefit fully from your lesson. You don't have the scenario. This is so crazy. You don't have the scenario to have an imagined hurt to forgive. Okay, so breaking that down, to me, what that says is, yeah, you can play life safe. You can not take risks. You can stay in your bubble. I think we're all guilty of that. I'm certainly guilty of that as well. Or you can get in there and face things, take some risks, take some challenges, get hurt, because that's actually it's not. I mean, to me, that's the message that I'm taking away. That hurt and that process of going through the hurt and all that is actually the good stuff. That's the important part of life. I think back to things that happened last year. I'm not going to go into detail about them just yet, but maybe one day I'll do a deeper dive, a deeper breakdown video, because it is important. I went through something pretty traumatic about a year and a half ago. It went on for like 9 months. Actually, that's what led me down to somehow discovering NDEs and learning about this entire field and becoming obviously so intrigued by it. But I went through a really tough period, and now that it, at least for the time being, has resolved, I think back on it as such an amazingly valuable time, because it did open me up. It did learn so many things. It allowed me to learn so many things and gain empathy for so many other situations that I had no understanding of before. Now that's stuff that I'm extracting within this life, but I imagine all those difficult periods when I'm back in the ethereal, I'll look back and be like, man, that was good stuff right there. Because my spirit, my soul, my energy learned a lot of lessons about compassion, about dealing with depression, dealing with something that is like threatening you that you can't control, and how do you wrap your mind around it? How do you maybe lean on gratitude or lean on other positive ways of just like staying, like all these just beautiful lessons that I extracted from it. So I love this statement and sentiment here. Now here's the kicker. Here's what the therapist says: it seems like kind of a game. Life is what he's referring to, or she is referring to, I believe. And then the subject responds, while under hypnosis, it is. These are parameters that we put up from which to learn. Again, just I go back. I am patting myself on the back a little bit for that chess analogy, because I feel like it just folds beautifully into what this account is saying. But again, it's like we put up parameters, we put up intentional strictures, we limit our abilities so that we are then put in these difficult situations. We have to operate from those situations, do our best. But ultimately, whether we win or we lose within these little imagined games or self-imposed games, the winning or losing is irrelevant, but it's the lessons that we learn along the way while trying to win that is important, that we retain and that we take with us going forward. So anyways, that's the two little insights that I wanted to share. Big takeaways. I love how it explains the idea of forgiveness. And man, I feel like forgiveness in general is probably something that I would say almost every single person on this planet it needs to work on, and is working on, is actively working on. Myself, obviously, 100,000,000% included. And so I loved the way that it phrases and explains the idea of what is true forgiveness. The last part too, about life being like a game, man. I have felt that. I think I felt that to my core well before I even started learning about this subject matter and reading these accounts. But I have felt that, and it makes sense, once again, not to demean or diminish the value of life, but just putting it in a context of, why do we play games? Yes, for connecting and bonding and having fun, but also we learn from them. We learn beautifully from them. And I think that's what this life is about. It's a learning vehicle. You hear that from NDE accounts over and over. So anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. I wanted to share this. It just makes me happy to even talk about this stuff and read about this stuff, because man, it's so many light bulbs are going off my head. So many things are clicking and connecting. And I hope if you're watching this, the same thing is happening for you. I believe that it's not imperative for me to share this to everybody to convince everybody of the veracity of these statements or these accounts. I don't think it's about that at all. I think it's sharing this for individuals who this resonates with and who latch onto it and can extract some positivity from it. So if you're one of those people, I'm very happy that this content has found its way to you. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.